horse need to be well cared for to bring out the best in him, but the owner will require training to be able to do this properly and safely, so they can fully enjoy this very pleasurable activity. Every horse or pony must have trust and confidence in their handlers. They must also respect them. This relationship will start from the foal's birth and continues throughout the animal's life. A successful handler will be firm, but never harsh or loud. They are consistent in what they ask their charge to do and how they do it. Some fortunate people have a natural instinct when handling horses and ponies. Others have to work at it. When handled well, even a fit and active stallion, as we see here, can be well mannered, easy and safe to control, and a joy to own. Here we see a young pony, feeling well and full of himself. He is being reminded of his manners while being led in hand. He must walk forward, halt and stand still. And he should lead from both sides. In the stable, he again must stand still when tied up and move over when told. If he's allowed to be disobedient now, he may take advantage while being ridden. Conformation is the name given to the basic structure and form of the horse, and should not be confused with condition, which is how fat or thin, fit or unfit the horse is. Good basic sound conformation is the same whether we're talking about a racehorse or a Shetland pony, and it takes years of experience to be able to assess the good and bad points quickly. The best way to learn is to just look at a whole variety of horses. To begin with, we stand back and look at the horse as a whole, to see that he's basically in proportion and presents a nice picture. Now let's take a closer look. We start with the head. It's the first thing that greets us in the morning and is a good indication of his character. We want good pricked ears, an alert expression with a large, bold, kind eye and a good, broad forehead. The nostrils should be wide and the teeth should meet in a good bite so that he can graze easily. The angle that the head is set onto the neck is important when we ask the horse to flex, and any thickness here will affect his ability to do so easily. The neck should not be too long and thin and weedy, nor should it be short and thick and set low onto the shoulder, which will again give him problems when we ask him to work in a correct outline. The shoulder should be long and sloping so that he has a nice long flowing stride. An upright shoulder can give an uncomfortable ride for the rider. The feet should be well formed and a matching pair. A pastern that is too upright will result in jarring for the horse and rider, but one too long and sloping will put excess strain on the back of the leg. The fetlock, as with all the joints, should not have a round or puffy appearance. The cannon bone should be short, so that the tendons, which are well defined, are not liable to excess strain. When we hear the term bone, it's actually the circumference just below the horse's knee. The knee should be broad and flat, and the forearm well muscled. The elbow should not be tight into the horse's side, as this may restrict his free movement. The forearm, knee and cannon bone should all be in a straight line to the ground. The withers. This is where we measure the horse and pony. from the highest point in a straight line down to the ground, in a unit of hands. A hand is 4 inches, but we now often hear the modern equivalent as metres. This horse is 15 hands, or 1.5 metres approximately. In a riding horse, the withers should be set well back, as this dictates where the saddle sits. The rib cage should be well sprung, and the girth deep, as this is his lung and heart room. The length of back should be considered. A long back may give a looser stride, whereas a short back, although stronger, may be less comfortable. The hind quarters. This is the powerhouse or engine of the horse, and we need a nice, rounded, well-defined muscle. The length from the croup to the top of the tail is important, and the tail should neither be set too high nor too low. A good, well-muscled thigh and a large, well-let-down hock. There should be a straight line from the point of buttock through the point of hock down the back of the tendons to the ground when the horse is stood on a level surface. When viewed directly from behind, we must first check that the hips are level. Again, we want good muscle development, especially down the inside of the legs. And there should be a straight line running down through the hock to the ground. They should turn neither in nor out. Now let's take a look at the front legs. There should be sufficient width between the forelegs, again for heart room and also for a straight, free action. As with the hind legs, straightness is important, and there should be a straight line running through the forearm, knee, cannonbone and foot. Thank you, Freddie. Now we see a completely different stamp of horse. But if we stand back and view him as a whole, the relative proportions are correct. The size of head, length of neck, angle of shoulder, straightness of forelegs, depth of heart and lung room, length of back, and roundness of hind quarters are all quite good. His strides are short and action a little stiff and cloppy. He would probably be a very safe but not too comfortable ride. This horse stands at 15.2 hands, but is of a much heavier build, having 9 3/4 inches of bone, up to any weight. He's bright bay in colour and has a lot of white markings showing his breeding, which is 3/4 Shire horse. Both front legs have white to the knees, and the hind legs have white to above the hocks. He has a blaze, which is a broad white mark down his face, which extends over the bones of the nose, and a pink muzzle. This chestnut horse measures 16.2 and is a middleweight hunter type. He's less compact in build than the bright bay, but looser and more active in his movement. He has white to just below his hocks on his hind legs, a few white hairs behind his girth, and a white spot on his bottom. On his head is a star and stripe. The stripe is a narrow white mark down the face. Here we have a thoroughbred 16.2 bay gelding. A bay horse is brown in colour with black points. A brown horse is dark brown or nearly black in colour with brown points. The points are considered to be the muzzle, tips of ears, mane, tail, and extremities of the legs. White is not a colour but a lack of pigment. As you can see, he has more quality than the other horses, with sculptured features and a look that oozes intelligence. His only white mark is a small star on his forehead. Clean, fresh water at all times is essential for the stabled horse, and you should adhere to a regular feeding programme that ensures you feed little and often, which mirrors the natural way they would eat if kept outside. To decide on the actual amount to feed, it's advisable to consult the feeding tables in the Pony Club manual. For the horse's digestive system to work efficiently, it requires bulk, roughage, and in a stabled horse this is provided as hay. There are two types of hay, meadow and seed. Seed hay is a grown crop and is much coarser and usually fed to horses in hard work. Meadow hay has a much softer, greener texture. For horses with respiratory problems, hay can be fed well soaked or in a moist, vacuum-packed form. Whatever we feed, it should always be good quality. Poor quality feedstuff is not only wasteful, of little nutritional value, but may be positively detrimental to your horse's health. The amount to feed will depend upon the size, age, temperament and work done by the horse. A horse in hard, fast work will require more concentrates in his daily ration, whereas a horse in less work will require more bulk. And as the stable horse's diet is basically dry, it's a good idea to feed something succulent, like carrots, to compensate for the lack of grass. A horse's stomach lies next to his chest, and when full, may impede the full expansion of his lungs. Therefore, it's very important that he's allowed plenty of time to digest a feed before he's asked to do any work. Whatever we feed, we should provide a balanced diet. So let's take a look at some of the options available. Cubes. This is a compound feed with a variety of ingredients and may have vitamins or minerals added. There are several forms to cater for different nutritional requirements or suitability, such as racehorse cubes for high energy, horse and pony cubes for general work, or stud cubes for breeding stock. Another compound feed is the coarse mix. Again, a variety of ingredients, but this time held together with a molasses base, but this may reduce its shelf life. Oats are the most traditional feed fed to horses. They have a very high energy value, therefore care must be taken when feeding them to ponies, as they may become too excitable or hot up. Whole oats should be nipped or bruised before they're fed to make them easier to digest, but they should never have a dusty or floury appearance. This barley has been pre-cooked and rolled, again to make it easier to digest. Barley has a less heating effect, but is excellent for maintaining condition. A traditional bulking and mixing agent is wheat bran. Good quality wheat bran is difficult to obtain, and ideally the flakes should be as large as possible, but it should only be fed in small quantities. Another bulking agent is hay chop or chaff, and this particular one has had molasses added to make it more palatable. Another source of energy and roughage is sugar beet pulp, seen here as shreds. Care should be taken when feeding this, and no matter how much you feed, it should be well soaked for at least 24 hours beforehand, as it will swell to 3 times the size. A compound feed will provide your horse's total daily concentrate ration, but a more experienced feeder may wish to mix a variety of ingredients. All feed should be stored where it's clean, dry and free from vermin. A well-balanced diet should fulfill all your horse's requirements, but you may wish to add extra vitamins and minerals, but this should be done so with your veterinary surgeon's advice and fed in accordance to the manufacturer's directions. To maintain your horse or pony's good condition will require daily observation, and any changes or additions should be done so gradually. Grooming is the care and attention to the pony or horse's coat and skin. Not only will correct grooming make the horse look smart, it will act as a massage, improve the circulation and help to tone the muscles. Effective grooming is hard but very rewarding work. Start by picking his feet out. Use a stable skip and run your hand down his leg. Ask him to lift up his foot and clean all the dirt out with a hoof pick into the skip. Remember to use the hoof pick down from the heel of the hoof to the toe. In this way there is no risk of damaging the soft part of the frog. Do each foot in turn. If the pony was living out at grass, he would need to keep the natural oils and greases in his coat for warmth and waterproofing, so we'd only groom him with a dandy brush, except for his mane and tail, where we would use the body brush. The main grooming is best done after work or exercise, when any mud or sweat will need removing, but the pores of the skin will also be open, lifting scurf and grease, and therefore making our work more effective. Next we use the dandy brush. This is to remove all sweat and mud. Care must be taken on a sensitive skinned horse or clipped pony, as they may object to the hard brushes. The dandy brush is used with short strokes from the wrist and may be used in either hand, and in cases of very stubborn dirt, used in a to and fro movement. The body brush and curry comb are used next. The short hairs of the body brush are designed to reach through the coat to the skin beneath. The strokes we use are slightly longer and rounder than the dandy brush and are applied with pressure from the groomer's shoulder and elbow. Start with the mane thrown over to the other side of the neck, then brush the pony's crest, then gradually work on the mane, ends first and then roots. Then on to the body. From behind the poll, work your way along the horse's side. On the right side of the pony, use the body brush in the right hand and the curry comb in the left hand. Try and develop a rhythm with your strokes, as this will help the muscles to relax and contract, acting as a massage for the horse. It's much easier for the person doing the work as well. After several strokes, clean the body brush by drawing it across the curry comb. Remember, the curry comb will require banging clean at regular intervals. Do this away from the horse and in a pile so it can be swept away later. Work your way along the horse in logical pattern, then groom the other side in the same way, but always change the body brush and curry comb into the opposite hands. Left hand body brush on the left side of the horse. After this side is finished, untie your horse and place the head collar around his neck. You're now free to brush his head. Replace the head collar and retie him up. Next, sponge his eyes and nose, and under his dock, using 2 sponges marked differently to avoid mixing them up. Then lay the mane over with the water brush. Now we use the stable rubber, folded into a flat pad, lightly dampened, and wipe the coat in the direction of the hair. This will remove the last traces of dust. Finally, deal with the tail. Use the body brush only, and brush the ends first over your knee. Then, taking a few hairs at a time, brush carefully to untie any knots. If you are rough, you will pull out the hairs, and a very tangled tail may have to be separated by your fingers before using a brush. The effort and care taken with regular grooming will pay dividends in the long run. The mane is pulled to thin out and shorten it, and to allow it to lie flat. A pulled mane will be easier to plait. Pulling a tail is a very skilled operation, which needs to be done extremely carefully. Start by removing the longer hairs from the outside at the top of the dock, a few hairs each day. Here with the grey horse we see the process complete. A bang tail is cut off square 4 to 8 inches below the points of the hocks. If required, a tail left full at the top can be plaited for neatness and tidiness. Long hair in the fetlock and heel region, the feather, can be removed as shown by combing the hair upwards and trimming it off with scissors. Clipping is the term we use when removing the whole or part of the horse's coat, and we do this for several reasons. To make it easier for him to work for longer and at a faster pace, to help keep condition by preventing heavy sweating, and to help your horse to dry off much quicker, preventing chills and colds. The added benefit is a clipped horse is easier to groom. Preparation for clipping is to have a clean horse, aired clean rugs and a well-maintained machine with sharp blades, but should only be used under the direction of a senior groom. Assemble the blades and machine adjusting the tension springs. If too loose, the blades will pull the hair, not cut it, and if too tight, the extra burden on the machine will cause it to overheat and burn out. Before, during and after use, the machine and blades must be kept well oiled and cleaned, not only to maintain the machine, but for the comfort of your horse. Screw the spring down until quite tight, then loosen 1 to 2.5 twists. Listen to the tone, and you'll soon be able to hear when the blades are biting. Decide which type of clip you require. Introduce the machine to the horse and start to clip a muscled part of his body, normally near the shoulder. You should use as long strokes as possible. Longer strokes will give a tidier and eventually quicker clip. Use the blades against the lie of the hair, keeping them parallel to the body, not into the skin, and not in sharp, jerky movements. Types of clip to choose depend on the amount of work to be done, type of work, and how the horse is to be kept, stabled, or in the field, and the condition of both. We can just remove the hair from under the tummy and neck. This is useful for ponies living out, as most of the coat is left on. The trace clip is taken from the driving harness, the lines of the traces along the horse's side, again ideal for a horse or pony out to grass. With the blanket clip, a patch the size of a blanket over the horse's back is left. This is to keep the loins warm. With a hunter clip, just the legs and saddle patch are left on for protection. And with a full clip, the whole coat would be removed. These clips are for horses in heavy, fast work that are stabled. Of course, if you clip your horse, you're going to have to put rugs on him, and traditionally a blanket and jute rug are used. This jute rug is probably a little bit small for this horse. Ideally, it could be a bit deeper and a little bit longer. This is an alternative type of night rug, and it's made of quilted nylon. The thickness can vary depending on how warm you want the rug to be, but they all have the advantage of being lightweight and easy to wash. This one is fitted with cross surcingles, so they remove any danger of pressure points on the horse's back. The surcingle should cross underneath the tummy and be fitted loosely, but not so loose as the horse may get his leg caught through. The rug is cut and darted so that it will stay in place when he lies down. To take a rug off, undo the breast girth first. The surcingles, and slide it off in the direction of the coat. You should then shake it out, fold it up, and put it neatly out of the horse's way. This is a wool day rug and is often used for travelling. It's quite thick and is fitted here with a surcingle, again with a breast girth. Care should be taken your breast girth again isn't too tight to restrict movement. You have to use your own discretion as to what thickness you use to keep your horse at the correct temperature. They want to be warm but not hot. If you have a horse that tends to break out or sweat after exercise, you'll need to cool them down quickly but keep them warm. So you can use an anti-sweat rug like this one. It works in the same way as a string vest by trapping the air, and is best used with another rug on top made of natural fibres. This is a cotton summer sheet, and I folded the front back again so they can cool off more easily. The whole thing is kept in place again with a surcingle, and this rug is fitted with a fillet string to prevent it being blown forward. If you used a summer sheet on its own, it would be purely to keep the dust off or maintain the appearance of your horse's coat. If the horse is living out all or part of the time in winter and feeling the cold, or is clipped, you'll need a New Zealand rug. This is traditionally a waterproofed canvas rug, but this is a lightweight synthetic material, but they always have a warm lining. The fit is very important, as the horse may be wearing it for long periods of time. You should be snug around the neck to prevent rain coming in, but shouldn't restrict the horse's ability to graze or rub on the shoulder. They can be fitted with a neck cover for extra protection. And here, this one has a sheepskin patch to prevent it rubbing. It's extra deep so that rain will run straight off and not round under the horse's tummy. And this one doesn't have a surcingle at all, but is fitted with leg straps, which are crossed one through the other to prevent them chafing, and shouldn't be fitted so low as the horse may get his leg caught. If it's a canvas rug, it will need scrubbing and waterproofing once a year. The whole subject of your pony's health can be an area of confusion, and your best possible guide is a veterinary surgeon. Colin Vogel is an expert on equine health.
When we approach the horse, we can learn an awful lot about how healthy it is just by watching it carefully. The horse breathes quite slowly in actual fact, and if you stand and watch it, you'll see that it only takes about 8 or 12 breaths every minute. As we move closer to the horse, we can take its pulse. We do this by feeling a blood vessel on the bottom jaw here and feeling it pulse away. The heart beats about 40 times every minute. This is the exact same as the veterinary surgeon does when he listens to the horse's heart with his stethoscope. The heart goes boom. Of course, by now we might be a little bit concerned that our horse is not as healthy as it ought to be. And if we think that there's an infection there, then we will take its temperature. We do this at the tail, not at the mouth. you leave the thermometer in about a minute. And a word of warning that it can be difficult to read where the mercury is on the thermometer. So practice beforehand to make sure that you know how to do it. When you arrive to check your horse, you might find that it's got a small wound on some part of its body. Obviously, many of these will require veterinary attention, but even while you're waiting for the vet to arrive, you should be capable of carrying out elementary first aid. The first thing to do is to stop any bleeding, and the way to do this is to take a pad and apply it to the wound firmly for 10 to 15 minutes. Of course, if you haven't got a first aid kit with you, you'll find that a clean handkerchief will do just as well. You'll notice that so far I haven't said anything about washing the wound. This is because if you just keep washing it, you will wash away the clot as quickly as it forms. So washing is best left until the wound has stopped bleeding. And then, if it is contaminated with dirt, you can clean it with some water containing a small amount of disinfectant, or perhaps with a prepared swab out of the first aid kit. Very small wounds won't even need this. They'll just require the application of a small amount of wound powder. You'll notice that I've only put a small amount on. There is nothing to be gained by coating it with a large amount of powder. That just helps to protect the infection from the good effects of drying. By looking at the incisor teeth at the front of a horse's mouth, we can get an idea how old the horse is. The horse has its full set of permanent teeth by about 4 or 5 years old, and we can age it pretty accurately up to 8 years old. But I must stress that teeth do actually cause problems in horses, and they need regular attention. Chris, if you let me have the gag, then we'll have a look at this horse's teeth. Yes, the cheek teeth inside its mouth have developed some sharp points, which will be painful when the horse is chewing and which will interfere with its digestion, so it won't be using its food properly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a piece of equipment called a rasp to remove those sharp edges. There, he hardly felt that at all. Certainly he was a lot better than I am when I go to the dentist. Perhaps the most important thing that we need to do to keep our horses healthy is to worm them regularly. Looking at a horse in such good condition as this, it's hard to imagine that there might be some worms inside. But almost all horses do have worms in their stomach and intestines. They pick them up on the grass as they are grazing, and the worms then pass to the intestines and develop there. The length of time it takes for the worms to develop to adults and laying more eggs that pass out in the horse's dung to contaminate the pasture again can vary. It might be as short as 3 or 4 weeks, but for really troublesome worms, such as the one called Strongylis vulgaris, it can take 6 months for this cycle to be completed. So we have to worm them every 8 weeks to keep them free from these worms. And we need to use an effective wormer that will both kill the adults and also kill off these immature larval stages that have only just been taken into the body. The wormer can be mixed in the food, or it can be given as a convenient paste, which we literally put on the back of his tongue like that. Quite like that, didn't you, boy? This worming is an all-year-round activity. It is not good enough to just worm a horse once or twice during the grazing season.
If you suspect your pony may be lame, the vet will ask you to trot him up for him to watch and then make a judgment. This must be done on a hard, level surface. The vet will not only be looking at the feet and legs, but also at his head and hips. It's therefore very important to keep on a constant, equal pace, but also allow the pony to nod his head. Trot at a very steady pace in a straight line directly towards the vet. Then turn and trot away. If lame in a front leg, the head will nod up when the painful leg comes to the ground and down again as the sound leg takes the weight. The reverse if the lameness is in a hind leg. To begin with, just watch and try to decide whether or not the steps are level. Turning in small circles may help if the lameness is not shown obviously on a straight line. Thankfully, this pony seems to have trotted up sound. He's not lame.
If you find that your horse is lame, then examine the affected leg carefully for any swelling or heat. If you suspect that there's an infection there, then you should poultice it. There are two kinds of poultice. There's animal Lintex, which is a pad which is soaked in warm water and then applied to the wound. Take care, incidentally, that the polythene side is on the outside. The other kind of poultice is kaolin. This is a paste which you spread on the affected area. Now, these poultices have to be held in place with a bandage, and the best kind of bandage to use is a crate bandage. These have enough give in them to allow the leg to swell if something is happening inside, rather than staying tight as an ordinary cotton bandage might do. You can also get bandages which stick to themselves, but which don't stick to the horse, and so don't hurt the horse when you take them off. If there's no sign of infection, then the safest way to deal with any swellings is to apply cold. The cold reduces the blood supply to the area and so reduces the swelling. Oh boy, right. But remember that 90% of lameness is actually due to problems in the foot. Up you come, boy. It might be bruising around the sole, or even here in an area of the foot that we call the seat of corn. The most dramatic form of foot lameness is possibly when the horse punctures the sole here and gets infection into it. Then the hoof is very hot to touch and the horse will scarcely put it to the ground at all. And then the veterinary surgeon has to take his knife and pare away at the place where the infection got in until he can let out all the pus. The foot is then poulticed to draw it out until the horse is then sound again. Of course, not all foot lamenesses are acute ones. Navicular disease, for instance, is a chronic foot problem, and so can laminitis be. Laminitis is especially important in ponies. It affects all 4 feet and makes them very, very painful indeed, so that the pony can perhaps hardly walk at all. It's very common in small fat ponies that are kept on really lush grass or given too much food and not enough exercise. It's best not to have to treat laminitis, but to prevent it happening in the first place. And you can do this by not overfeeding your pony, by giving it a standard exercise pattern so that you don't forget to exercise it one day but still feed it, and by having its feet properly trimmed. We must remember that when we put shoes on our horse's feet, we take over the responsibility for those feet, because in the wild, the horn would have been worn away by the ground, and with the iron shoes on, of course, it can't be worn away. So we have to have the feet regularly trimmed as well as regularly shod. Ideally, when we look at the sole of a horse's foot and we measure across it, a line like this from the corner to the centre of the toe is the same as a line across the widest part. And when it is, then we know the foot is properly balanced, and the forces that occur every time the horse bangs its foot on the ground will be evenly spread.
The farrier is making his regular visit to take care of Freddie's feet. He does this every 5 to 6 weeks. Even if we do very little work on hard surfaces like roads, the shoes will need removing, the growth of horn trimmed, and the shoe replaced. If the feet are kept in good shape, regularly attended to by the farrier, cast shoes and foot-related problems should be minimal. First, he will remove the shoe by knocking up the old nail heads or clenches with a hammer and buffer. When these have been released, he will lever off the shoe with a pair of pincers, taking care not to damage the wall of the hoof. Excess hoof is then trimmed with either a drawing knife or a pair of horn trimmers. A rasp is then used to level off the foot. This farrier is going to hot shoe. This means he heats the shoe in a forge, so he can alter its shape to fit the horse's foot. Once heated, the shoe is carried with a pritchel and adjusted on the anvil. Now he can try it on the foot and adjust it again if necessary. He cools it in water, so it's now ready to be nailed on. Using a driving hammer, the shoe is secured in place, the sharp ends of the nails being twisted off with the claw of the hammer. Normally 7 nails are used, 4 on the outside and 3 on the inside, so there is less likelihood of the clenches catching the opposite leg. At the heels of this shoe we can see road studs. These are designed to give extra grip, but are not usually seen in the front shoes, as they can cause extra wear and tear on the forelegs. A rasp is used to file down the nail heads to form the clenches, and to make a shallow bed in the hoof wall for them to lie in. The clenches are then tightened with either the driving hammer and pincers, or as in this case, the clenching pincers. The type of shoe we have seen fitted is called a hunter shoe, being made of concaved iron, wider on the bearing surface of the foot to help prevent it being sucked off in mud, and has a fullered groove on the ground surface to help grip. It also forms a bed for the nails. If the horse's action is close, a feather-edged shoe may be used, the narrow tapered side being fitted on the inside of the foot. A well-shod horse is where the shoes have been made to fit the foot and not the foot to fit the shoe. This is why it's an advantage to have your pony hot-shod. The foot is such an important part of the horse's anatomy. It's the first area you should study closely and get to know in detail.
Remember that farriers don't only nail shoes onto horses' hooves, they can also help your vet deal with problems. It might be that having a raised heel on the shoe will take some of the tension off the tendons down the back of the leg. Or we might need a bar across the back of the shoe to provide extra protection to the heels. Remember, though, that you are not veterinary surgeon or farrier, and so if you have a problem, don't forget to seek their advice.
When working horses, we may need to protect their legs against injury. This may be from their other legs or from the dangers of hitting obstacles when jumping. And we do this with boots or bandages. Boots are available in different styles and materials and cater to guard against specific injuries. So let's take a look at some. Probably the most common injury is brushing, and this is when the hoof catches down the inside of the opposite leg. This is a simple brushing boot. It's made of neoprene and has 4 Velcro fastenings. The same principles should always apply when fitting any boot. Obviously, it needs to be secure so it doesn't work loose, but there must never be any pressure points, particularly down the sensitive tendons, as this may not only cause short-term damage, but long-term problems. She's also wearing a rubber overreach boot, and this is to guard against the hind foot striking into the heel of the foreleg, particularly when jumping. Care must be taken with overreach boots that it's not so long, as the hind leg may tread on it, not only pulling the boot off, but it could bring the horse down. Rubber overreach boots do have a disadvantage in that they can be difficult to get on, and in deep going, they may turn inside out, therefore being ineffective. So to prevent this problem, we can have a boot made of segments secured with a strap. If the hind leg strikes higher into the foreleg in the tendon area, we can wear a tendon protector, and this one's made of plastic with an open front. On the hind leg, we've got a leather brushing boot, secured with 5 straps and buckles. A sturdy boot, but it will need regular care to keep it soft and supple. Another design of brushing boot made of plastic. If the horse tends to brush low down or in a specific area, we can just put on a rubber ring, which will deflect any blows. Bandaging also affords a lot of protection, but unless done properly, will cause major problems. To prepare a horse to travel, it's necessary to protect the tail and legs. This is to guard against injury whilst travelling and also whilst loading and unloading. And one method of doing this is to bandage. The type of bandage we use for travelling or in a stable is often made of stockinette or wool like this one, and we always bandage over a leg wrap. This not only gives extra protection but also helps even out the tension under the bandage. And it's important that it's very smooth and the flap goes from the front to the back. We start to bandage just below the knee and work down, keeping an even tension. Obviously it needs to be firm enough not to slip, but it mustn't be so tight that it could interfere with circulation. The most important area to protect with a travel bandage is the coronet band. This bandage fastens with Velcro, but if it had tapes, they should be tied on the outside or the inside in a neat bow and the ends tucked in, never on the front or back where it could cause a pressure point. I'm also going to fit a knee boot. You start off by putting it slightly higher up the leg than you want it and slide it down into position. The top strap is done up quite firmly, with the buckle on the outside and the strap facing forwards. But the lower strap is done up much more loosely, so that it doesn't interfere with the action of the joint, but never so loose that another leg could get caught in it. A hock boot would be fitted in exactly the same way, but it's a good idea to put one on first, then walk the horse round to get it used to it before you put the second one on. We bandage a tail to prevent it being rubbed, and also to help the hair lie flat, especially important if the tail is pulled. Always dampen the hair first and never wet the bandage, as that may shrink. We start at the top and do a couple of turns to secure it. We usually use a slightly elasticated bandage, as this gives extra grip. And always work down again with an even tension, covering about half the previous turn with the next one. Work down to just before the last bone and then back up again. The tapes should lie flat and should never be tied any tighter than the tension of your bandage. Finish with a bow on the outside and tuck the ends in neatly. Tail bandages can cause damage if they're left on too long, so you should never leave one on overnight. Finish by just bending the tail back into a more natural position. An alternative to bandaging is to use travelling boots such as these. They're lightweight and easy to put on and can give the same protection as a bandage, providing they come down over the coronet band, but they don't give the same support. However, they will alleviate the problems that can be caused by incorrect bandaging. They often fasten with Velcro, but these have clips. However they fasten, they should always be on the outside of the leg. Always park your horse box on level ground, and if you do have a front ramp that opens, it's a good idea to put it down. It makes the trailer lighter, and if the horse can see a way through, she'll be more inclined to go on. Okay, Morven. Always lead the horse from the shoulder. Even if they're reluctant to go, never go ahead and pull. You should always have an assistant to immediately fasten the breeching strap or put the ramp up before the horse is tied up, just in case they panic and pull back. Also, always put the ramp up from the side, again, so if the horse does pull back, you don't get flattened underneath it. Okay, Morven, you can tie her up now. Good girl. Morven has tied her up using a quick release knot to a piece of string. Make sure all the ramps are securely fastened, all the doors are shut and you're hitched up correctly, and then you're ready to move off. Thanks very much, Morven. There are very few horses or ponies which will not have to be transported at some stage of their lives. In fact, most horses travelling in a horse box or trailer, it's a very regular occurrence. The driver of any such vehicle must remember he is in total charge of the ride his passengers will have. Any horse or pony in the back will not know when his transport will start to move or when it will stop, so he cannot prepare himself for these movements. Equally, he cannot adjust his balance for any sharp or sudden turns. The driver must be thinking of this at all times, starting, stopping, and turning slowly and smoothly. If he does this, his passengers should remain relaxed and confident. The horse should not arrive at his destination, no matter how far or near, in a hot, sweaty or worried state. So it's a good idea to stop at intervals to check your pony or horse is happy. If a pony or horse has lost confidence and is frightened to be boxed, he must be handled in a calm, reassuring but positive way. Extra bedding on the floor may help with the frightening noise. Parking so the ramp is not too steep, or by a solid wall to act as a wing to prevent him running away. If care is always taken when loading and travelling your horse or pony, you should experience no trouble. Arrive at your destination with a happy, content, fresh pony, ready and able to do his best for you. The saddle is designed for the security and comfort of the rider, and all saddles are built on a basic structure called the tree. The top of the saddle is for the rider's benefit, while the underneath, or panel, is the cushioning for the horse. This saddle is for the all-round rider, a general-purpose saddle, designed to keep the rider in correct balance with the horse. For more specialised riding, we need a more specialised saddle. For advanced jumping, we have a much more forward-cut flap to compensate for the rider's leg position. Now he's riding with a much shorter stirrup, and also again to keep him over the correct centre of gravity of the horse. The other extreme is the dressage saddle. Here the flap is much straighter cut because the rider now has a longer stirrup. With all saddles, the deepest part of the seat should always be in the centre. This dressage saddle has long girth straps and is used with a short girth to eliminate the bulk of buckles under his leg so he can ride closer to the horse. Stirrups, as with bits, should be stainless steel and are usually used with a rubber tread for extra grip. Leathers should obviously be as strong as possible, and these particular ones are buffalo hide. As with all tack, the stitching should be checked regularly for safety reasons. Girths come in a variety of materials and styles. Leather girths. Here we have the Atherstone and the Balding. These are shaped to give extra comfort behind the horse's elbow, but they can be flat, as in the threefold girth. The Lampwick is designed to be softer and more comfortable, as is its modern nylon padded equivalent. Most leather-lined saddles are used in conjunction with a numner. They help keep the horse's back warmer and again come in a variety of fabrics. But they should never be used to compensate for an ill-fitting saddle. Now let's see some equipment on a horse. The basic fitting of any bridle is the same and is very important. The headpiece and throat lash prevent the bridle being pulled forward over his ears. They're all in one, and the throat lash should never be fitted so tight as it impedes flexion. The brow band prevents the bridle slipping back too far, but should be sufficiently large that it doesn't cause pinching behind his ears. Moving down the cheek pieces, these hold the bit in place in the horse's mouth, and the bit, when lightly held, should just crease the corners of his mouth and make him smile. The noseband, this is a Cavesson noseband, should be 2 fingers below his cheekbone, and you should be able to get a couple of fingers easily underneath it. Ritz is wearing a drop noseband with an Egbert snaffle with a German mouthpiece. The drop noseband is designed to prevent him opening his mouth too wide or crossing his jaw. It's fitted lower than the Cavesson noseband, about 4 fingers above the nostrils, but care should be taken it's not too low as it may interfere with his breathing. The top strap should not be too long that the rings will interfere with the bit, and the lower strap fits below the bit into his chin. He's also wearing leather plaited reins for extra grip. Charlie is wearing a pelham with a Cavesson noseband and plain leather reins. The pelham is a combination of the 2 bits of the double bridle, the bridoon and the curb, but with a single mouthpiece. We still have a bridoon rein and a curb rein and a curb chain, but it can be fitted with a rounding joining the 2 rings and a single rein. Another type of noseband designed to stop the horse opening his mouth or crossing his jaw is the grackle. This is basically a figure of 8 crossing on the front of the nose. It's probably more desirable for horses going cross-country, as it's fitted higher than the drop and there's less chance it can interfere with his breathing. He's actually wearing it with a double-jointed Egbert snaffle. Here we have a loose ring snaffle with a German mouthpiece, fitted with a flash noseband. This is again for horses who try to evade the bit by opening their mouths. It combines a Cavesson with a drop. We also have continental reins designed for extra grip. The double bridle. This should only be used on a well-schooled horse that's accepting and going correctly in a snaffle. We have 2 bits to give us a finer degree of control. The first bit, or bridoon, is fitted as a snaffle but held in place by a slip. The second bit, the curb, sits just below in the mouth but is still comfortable. We have a curb chain which should always lie flat and is held in place by a lip strap. The curb chain only actually comes into play when the curb bit is at an angle of 45 degrees. Whatever the type of saddle, ideally it should be fitted to the horse concerned, but there are a number of basic points to be borne in mind. The rider's weight should be distributed evenly along the lumbar muscles, and there should never be any concentrated pressure points. There should always be a good clearance down the spine, which should be checked when the rider is on board. And when it's girthed up, it should sit squarely and evenly on his back. Most saddles are fitted with 3 girth straps, and the construction is such that you should always use the first and either of the second 2. A saddle that's too long will press on the loins, and if the tree is too narrow, it will pinch here either side of the withers. A tree that's too wide may drop down and press on the withers and will tip the rider forward and out of balance. Ritz is now fitted with the sort of equipment you might use to go cross-country. We've got the addition of an overgirth, which is a safety precaution in case your girth or girth straps break. It's usually fitted with an elastic insert, and care should be taken here between the horse's front legs so that it can't slip back and pinch or ride back too far. He also has a hunting breastplate, and this should be attached to the D-rings at the top, which screw into the tree. You should be able to get a good hand's breadth underneath it at the withers. And this is fitted with running martingale attachment. A running martingale is designed to regulate a horse that has an unsteady head carriage. And as it acts on the reins and therefore the bit, it's very severe if fitted too short. So the rings should just reach into the horse's gullet. It should also have rubber stops to prevent the rings getting caught on the billets or buckles on the reins. He's now wearing a breast girth, which, as with the breastplate, is designed to stop the saddle slipping too far back. It consists of a web or elastic strap which is attached to the girth straps and should never be fitted so high that it interferes with his head carriage or breathing. He's also wearing a standing martingale. This is designed to prevent the horse getting his head above the point of control and consists of a single strap which runs from the girth to the noseband. When the horse is stood with his head in a normal position, the slack should just reach into his gullet. A standing martingale should only ever be fitted to a Cavesson noseband. Correct care and maintenance of saddlery is very important. Not only is it expensive to replace, but your life may depend upon it. After use, it should be washed in warm water to remove any grease or sweat or dirt, and then a leather dressing applied so that it can be stored away neatly and safely. This is also an ideal opportunity to check the stitching and metalwork are in good repair. New leather may need to be oiled before it is used, and this should be done on the underside and acts as a suppling and waterproofing agent. If you're going to store tack away for any length of time, again it should be well cleaned and dressed and stored with the buckles unfastened. Well cared for saddlery will always have a smart appearance, will be comfortable for horse and rider, and should last you a lifetime. The work involved in looking after your horse and pony is greatly rewarded by the bond that can develop between you. But whatever level you strive to achieve, the most important thing is that you enjoy yourselves.